Hello, welcome to my space. If you're watching on video, you can see my mirror is angled so you can see the back of me and even the reflection of my computer in the mirror, which is kind of cool. I am in a space of shedding old ways of being that are no longer aligned and fitting me. It's kind of like an outfit that just doesn't feel right anymore. At one point, it fit well and it made you feel better about yourself, but then something shifts, maybe your body changes or your taste changes, your style changes, and it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't work like it used to. And I feel like I'm in a place where I'm realizing what's not fitting and remembering that I am the one wearing the clothes. The clothes aren't me. I am me, and I can choose which outfits to wear. And I'm being extremely metaphorical right now, but to ground it a little bit more into details that you can sense. Uh, I have, in the past week, it's been kind of under the surface, but I've been making some big changes in my business. And at the time of this recording, not too long ago today, I sent out an email to my list announcing the changes. I've spent time redoing my website. Long story short, I saw how as precious as the 4-H method program is and has been to me, it felt like forcing, like I noticed some resistance around it that didn't align with what I feel is my full expression of freedom and authenticity. So I thought about what was feeling off in my work, and I was willing to let go of everything. I came to this place of surrender, as I often do. And I've been reading about subconscious and conscious mind with this book, Three Magic Words. The verdict is still out there, but so far I'm really enjoying it and the principles and perspectives in it. Three Magic Words. The author's first name is Uellul. And just in a way ready for transformation, for growth, shedding a layer of the snake skin or the dragon skin to be more accurate. And I decided to simplify my whole business model and just offer one-on-one coaching sessions. So instead of offering the 4-H method as a program, which I will still use in my work and always will, it's the framework I base my entire work on. The principles and tools and lessons in there are incredible, and I have some special, juicy ideas for how to share that with the world. But for now, not in program form. And I've also closed down my other offers, 30-day radical renewal, 24-hour reset. And I am focusing on what I love, the simplest form of it, one-on-one coaching. So now I'm offering that as my only paid service, $250 for 1 hour. And it is super easy to find on my website, on my link tree, and my social media accounts. So check it out. I redid my website. It's new and refreshed and more aligned with where I am right now. So I just wanted to share that with you. I am accepting clients. So if you would like to book a coaching session, it's easy to. There are some forms I encourage you to fill out before and after your coaching session that are on the booking page. And if you'd like to chat with me a little more before you book a session, feel free to email me. Feel free to contact me. All that information is clear. But let's get into this. A lot of the times we create our own struggles and we build these limitations that indeed feel extremely real because in our minds, they are real because we are believing them. In this book I'm reading, Three Magic Words, there's this concept he mentions of how we can't stop thoughts. And as Katie Byron says, we think that we're thinking thoughts, but thoughts are thinking us. And what comes through our brains truly is not within our control. If you just lie down, you know this, and try to be quiet and still, as in meditation, you notice immediately it's like a multi-road highway in a big city where cars are just zooming by in all directions, so many coming through. It probably feels like that when you try to quiet down. And a lot of us think that the goal of meditation is to stop those thoughts, as in to make all those cars disappear, all those vehicles disappear from the roads. Whereas truly the goal of meditation is to simply observe. And the more cars you noticed, so to speak, or the more thoughts you notice, the more you are the one observing it, and the less you identify with the one being that thought. So as you create distance from your thoughts, it's not that they don't have a hold on you or they don't have an effect on you, but the more space you create between you and that thought through awareness, the more power you have to choose, the more time you have to choose whether you want to jump in that car, so to speak. And the more you can watch what is happening, the more space you have in your brain, in your mind, in your life. And you realize more and more that you really get to deliberately choose which thoughts to believe, maybe not what thoughts to think, but what thoughts to believe and hold on to and accept as truth. And the sum of our personality is the thoughts that we've chosen to accept as true. Which of the 500 million thousand thoughts that have passed through our heads that we've decided to accept as true? And so that is what I mean when I say we often create our own limitations because we choose to accept thoughts, whether consciously or not, unfortunately, in the beginning at least. And some of those thoughts constrict us. Some of those thoughts aren't helpful. I was having a conversation with a new friend who also grew up in Christianity and has shifted from his childhood beliefs, and we were having discussions. And he asked me what I consider right and wrong, and I was sharing how I see beliefs in general as either harmful or helpful. And so when you frame it like that, you can consider which thoughts you accept that are helpful for you and which thoughts you accept that are harmful for you. Now, all of that car analogy built upon that introduction about what's going on in my work, all of this to segue into the main idea of the podcast episode today, which is how we limit ourselves and how we cause harm to ourselves often through feelings of guilt and a belief that sacrifice equals love, sacrifice equals being loved. And I'm going to break that down. In my episode recently with Sunil Bhaskaran, he mentioned that one of the four horsemen or one of these destructive traits is guilt. And we talked about how that comes out in the realm of health, because a lot of us feel guilty for spending money on ourselves for our health. And to be fair, the wellness industry has completely taken this thought, and you see it a lot more recently in marketing campaigns of like, you're worth it, or you deserve to take this time out of your day to get Botox, or you deserve to take these GLP-1 pills, even though they're expensive. It's worth it. Or you deserve to feel beautiful. Buy this makeup. So it is now used in that way of you deserve this, which is feels empowering, but there are many more layers to it. So the question again becomes is not is it right or is it wrong, but is it ultimately harmful or helpful ultimately? But I'm going to break this down based on that idea and with that framework of limitations in mind. So I'm going to generalize a little bit here. I've worked with different gender expressions, but mostly with cis women, mostly. And that is just due to the percentage of population. But um, I've worked with cis men and trans women as well, gay man, straight man, gay woman, straight woman, all of it. Thankfully, I've had that blessing of diversity in my clients. But I see it especially with cis or trans women, this feeling of guilt for spending on ourselves. And I'm going to even generalize further to say that I see this more often in mothers. Um, Guilt for spending money, investing in coaching or health. It feels, it can seem frivolous, it can seem extraneous, like, oh, there's so many other ways I could spend this money. And there's a lot of guilt, even for wanting to make time for themselves, even for wanting to say no to things so they can focus more on themselves. There's a lot of guilt. And if you feel bad about this, don't feel bad about your guilt. That's just more guilt. Consider the idea I've seen on shirts. I wish I aspired to have the mediocre. I aspire to have the confidence of a mediocre white man, and just consider how often men without merit necessarily take advantage and don't feel guilty. If you need to channel some of that, there it is for you. There's that thought. And this comes down to a feeling of not being deserving. And we say this a lot, like, oh, you deserve it, treat yourself, you deserve to feel good. And I say that a lot because I believe it's true, but we kind of say it flippantly, but without really diving into the essence of what it is to feel deserving. And it doesn't come from putting on a mask necessarily of, yes, I'm deserving. I'm going to buy this for myself. I'm going to go to the gym for myself, although that can foster genuine feelings rather than the mask. It comes from a place of looking inward. And to see yourself is to know yourself. To know yourself is to love yourself. And so often, women especially, there's so many statistics out there of how women take the bulk of emotional labor. I don't know the exact statistics, but the bulk of emotional labor, even for parentless couples, heterosexual couples, women tend to take the load of social labor, of emotional labor, of planning, of even what's the word that I'm thinking of when you designating? Yeah. And so we're so wrapped up in what we need to do and what we should do, and not just mothers, not just women, but some of us tend to focus on others, and that has to do with our upbringing and how we received love and what was perceived as love, and et cetera, et cetera. But at the core of it, on a really spiritual level, to love, just like I said, to see yourself is to know yourself, is to love yourself. When you realize that when you are depriving yourself, you are depriving others. And I don't mean this to create a maxim of love yourself so you love others. That's not the purpose here, because that can just be more external mindset. But on a energetic, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, level, when you love yourself, you are loving others, because we are not separate. It's the same for when you extend genuine, true love to others, you are also loving yourself. And we think, let's say, for example, I have $100 to spend on myself, or I could donate this to someone else. If it really gives you joy and you are overflowing, yes, donate that $100. But for a lot of us, if we were to invest more money, and not just money, but time, into what truly matters to us and what rejuvenates our souls, we would be brighter and more joyful for the people around us. And again, it's not just to be helpful to others, but the point is that when you take care of yourself, you are also taking care of others. So there's no need to feel guilty. What is more important of a question or an observation or exploration is, what function is this guilt serving me? What function is this guilt serving me? What is this cycle that this guilt is keeping me in? And you can kind of just play out the parts. Like, after you feel guilty, after what? Before what? What happens after the guilt? What happens before the guilt? What can you see a cycle? And sometimes it's a distraction. Sometimes guilt is a distraction, because we're in this whirlwind, we're in this cycle, and it's keeping us distracted from other things. And it's an easily accessible emotion, enough to drive us into action to do something else. So, what is that guilt driving you towards? What is it driving you from? And once you can see kind of how that pattern is playing out in your life, it becomes more clear what the function of guilt is for you. So that's a question you can ask yourself. I'd love to explore it with you in coaching if you'd like, and how it shows up with food and exercise. But you might also ask, not only what is the function of this guilt, but what is the origin of this guilt? And I know that for me, and I'm unpacking layers even today around this, that we are often, plainly, to put it plainly, loved for sacrifice. And I grew up in a Christian Baptist Bible household, Bible believing household. And even if you did not grow up explicitly religious or devoutly religious, if you are from a more Judeo-Christian background, or your ancestors are, or you grew up in America to some degree, there is this idea of sacrifice earning love. And this is a really nasty one, because it's pretty subtle and it's so ingrained that we don't usually notice it. And here we're going back to that idea of limitations and the beliefs that we accept. And it's no fault to us, there's no judgment. But once we become aware of it, we are empowered with that space between us and the thought to make different choices. Loved for sacrifice. In the Bible, in Christianity, God sends his son to earth and allows him to be killed in a violent way so that others can be saved if they reach out to God and ask for forgiveness for their sins, which is the reason God's son had to be sacrificed in the first place. Now, if you were to change that into like an HBO Max drama show, it would be one messy show. It would be like those shows that are really dark and like go into the underbelly of humanity and depravity. It would be one of those shows because that is fucked up. And when you say it, when I say it as an adult, I can see that, but I grew up believing that and hearing that all the time. And so even though I've strayed away from that, no matter what your beliefs are, just understanding that it's baked into our consciousness that love equals sacrifice, even as we glorify war and respect for all those who have lost their lives in war, but seeing that as necessary when so much of those deaths were unnecessary, if not all of them. Or we see and glorify, here we go, going straight into the depth of the wound. I'm putting my finger in the center of it and holding it there and wiggling it because ouch, it hurts. The picture of of a good mother and how she makes sacrifices. She does everything for everyone around her. Her husband, we're going for hetero here because the patriarchy and sexism. Her husband, her children, and even when she has free time, she still does something to do, donate to the community. And she's selfless and she's so sacrificial and such a giver and such a helper. And with those ideas, we've equated sacrifice with love, being helpful for being loved. There has to be some form of struggle, even with the American dream. It's not juicy or exciting unless someone really had to struggle. We love those stories. And yes, we do, but we don't have to have so many of those stories if the government took care of its people, but that's a different story. My point is that we've glorified struggle, sacrifice, and pain with being loved, with being valuable. And to everyone listening, and I want to say this especially to mothers, speaking as the daughter of a mother and a friend of mothers. Your sacrifice, what you do for others, your helpfulness, your struggle, those do not make you any more or less loved. If you were to drop sacrifice, helpfulness, pain, struggle, you would still be just as loved as you've ever been or ever will be. And let that drop in a little. into your heart, into your body, into your mind. And here I am giving you another option of something, a thought to accept. And you might not want to ride in the car right now. You might not want to jump in, but maybe you're like, yeah, I've been waiting for this car. Here's the thought I want to accept. You don't need to suffer to be loved. Now, the pinnacle of this episode, which feels very organized, at least in my mind. You tell me if I'm wrong and if I'm all over the place. But we talked about the basis and the framework for what I was going to introduce after that little introduction about what was going on. And then we talked about the feelings that we experience around guilt and deservedness and sacrifice being tied to love. And now I want to tie it in with our bodies. Oof. Specifically health and fitness, because hi, that's what this podcast is about. Even though I haven't even said anything about workouts or eating this whole episode, have I? Well, here we are at the pinnacle at the end. We often play this story out, often, like so commonly, with food and with exercise. And even to the severe degrees, you see disordered eating behaviors and diagnosable eating disorders where that is the cycle. Something drives the guilt. Maybe it's overeating. Maybe it's not exercising, quote unquote, enough. Maybe it's eating, quote unquote, bad food. Maybe it's even something that's not related to food. Something drives the guilt. Something drives the guilt where it goes up and up and up. The pinnacle of guilt. I don't like myself. I feel bad for such and such. And maybe we do attach very clearly to food where it's like, I didn't eat right, or I ate too much, I didn't eat enough, I didn't exercise enough, etc. Whatever that guilt comes from, that we attach the guilt to of our actions. It goes high, 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 high. We feel so guilty. Maybe we had a binge. And then we feel the need to punish ourselves. We feel the need to sacrifice, to struggle, maybe even to be helpful to others, to try to absolve our guilt in some way. And so we might exercise harder, we might restrict ourselves, we might try our best to adhere to strict rules that feel punishing. And it might not even be super severe, it might be more subtle. And then we feel better about ourselves. The guilt voice quiets down. And we're so tired of that punishing voice. Our willpower gets weaker to no fault of our own. No one wants to be a slave. And then we let loose and the guilt starts to rise again and this cycle continues. And it might look like that for you. It might look like something else. There might be an element of needing to suffer through your workouts, or even like what is common in I don't know, bro culture, gym bro culture of like not putting seasoning on food and just eating food that tastes bland. That's a way this manifests, just like we should suffer. And a lot of that comes from this idea of innate sinfulness that we've inherited from epigenetics and beliefs passed on to us and religious ideas and sexist ideas modeling what a woman should do or should be or how they should look. It's as if we feel the need to punish ourselves. And that's why I've talked about this. I talked about how to know if your healthy habits are actually fear in disguise. And I talk about presence being an antidote. And I talk about other things. Go listen to it to hear. But in this instance, not just presence, although that is just a given. There's a need to return to our innate wholeness and our innate lovedness. And one way we can do that, sometimes we take action and the feelings follow, sometimes we feel things and the actions follow. And there are different levels to that. But one way that we can experience less guilt without trying to push it away or suppress it, which sometimes backfires and can be a battle, a feeling like a battle. Another way that we can reduce guilt is by increasing its opposite, um, which is freedom and feeling forgiven, absolvement. Another way to lessen that feeling of needing to sacrifice is to focus on pleasure. And this is what I talk about a lot with movement and with food. And it's not, and by the way, just in a bigger framework of my work, I talk a lot about pleasure and with food and exercise because of that sacrifice mentality. And once we do have a healthy balance, we can understand what is helpful pain and what is harmful pain, because we're never trying to hurt ourselves. But sometimes we need to go to the extreme end of pleasure before we can find that balance. Another, if you want to lessen struggle without trying to lessen struggle, aim for ease. How would this look if it were easy? And so many times, because of we're in these beliefs, these boxes, these limitations, these thoughts that we've just, you know, accepted without really thinking about it or considering it or giving ourselves the space to have that choice. Things become clearer, things become simpler, things become easier, things flow better when we let go of those heavy, harmful thoughts that are keeping us stuck in that guilt cycle. And so whether you want to focus on, noticing the guilt and suffering and struggle that comes up, or you want to just focus on joy and pleasure and ease and absolvement, freedom, I just want to encourage you on the importance of how loved you are, regardless of how much you're struggling in whatever area of your life. And struggling doesn't make you a good person, and not struggling doesn't make you a bad person. You are loved no matter what. You are valuable regardless of your helpfulness. And you deserve to feel good. So I'm going to end with that. I kind of did a little, I guess, side eye with that phrase, you deserve to feel good. But I'm saying it in a way that I believe you will really feel and get after this episode discussion. You do deserve to feel good. You deserve to feel good in your body. You deserve to feel confident. You deserve to not be stressed and worried and feel guilty around food or exercise. You deserve to have health with ease. You deserve to grow without struggle. And, again, there's harmful and helpful challenges are helpful. But struggle often is unnecessary. So if you'd like to get one-on-one coaching, which is my invitation to you, you can book a call in the links below. And please let me know how this was for you. Thank you so much for sharing this space with me, for lending your ears, maybe your eyes and your mind and heart, even your body, all involved in this episode. I really do love you. Just because you're a fellow human, I love myself, so I love you. See? Ha ha ha. And I'll talk to you again soon.